that?
Hi there, that's fine. Um, I am going to use, obviously, this is the second part,
Okay. Yeah.
and maybe what we can do. I'd like to talk a little bit just in terms of the archetypal connections to the products a little bit, just to explore um, like the connection between the work that I was doing at the soul science thing, the Adam's calendar piece, um, the work with consciousness as the the fire of the alchemy and some of the
Mm.
remedies. So I mean, just bear with me. I just want to kind of like open it up and brainstorm a little bit. Do you mind?
Okay. No, no, no. Go for it. It
Can we
sounds
do that?
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
well, what I was thinking is that with the um, you were speaking about the Ganges water
Mm.
and the power of prayer,
Mm.
and that comes
Mm. Mm.
in both with the Ganges water and with the Metsun Buddha
Mm.
piece,
Mm.
the prayer,
Mm.
Metsun Buddha prayer.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And I think that that's an important piece of the work. So that's something that
Mm.
I want to be working. I mean, I know that it's already in there as a remedy, but I also want to be
Mm.
working with it intentionally.
Mm.
And I think for
Mm.
me, anyway, with my work, that it's powerful that people understand, like with Dr. Emoto's work, for example, how
Mm.
prayer into
Mm.
water changes its
Mm.
structure,
Sure. Sure.
you know, and that,
Sure.
if people are busy rebooting themselves, then they have to also
Yes.
be aware of conscious, consciously aware of what they're thinking and what thoughts are going into
Yes.
their,
Yes.
their
Yes.
life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me,
Yeah.
the the karma burns and the washing away of old memories is one thing. Another piece for me of the karma burns thing is moving into your future, moving into your highest potential, moving into your
Mm.
dream. Because for me, as we
Mm.
move, as we bump up the frequencies of something, if we make a
Mm.
choice, to do our greatest dream or something that's beyond what we've ever done before, for me, often then some of the unresolved stuff can also show itself.
Mm.
Some of your limited voices and stuff like that, your karma, your past, your patterning, etc., can also show up. So
Mm.
I quite like the idea of people being aware of doing to themselves what people would do in the Ganges and what the Buddha,
Mm.
the Metsun Buddhas would do into the
Mm.
water.
Mm.
That
Mm. Mm.
if you are consciously praying with intent or intending stuff in your own
Mm.
life, it's got to be
Mm.
to the highest potential of something.
Mm. Mm.
So that's one thing that I'm definitely bringing to the course. It's like,
Mm.
of course I want to be working with the highest frequency possible, and
Mm. Mm.
obviously as a complement to the work that you're doing, it's like how to get people to move into their future and dissolve the past at the
Mm.
same
Mm.
time.
Mm. Well, I mean, there's two parts to what you're saying. I mean, one is the cleaning of the slate. Yeah, I mean, and you could argue the slate is never entirely clean, but if we can get a good working surface, if we can clear all the pots and pans off the table, at least we can start to, make a meal, which would be the imprinting. I mean, a lot of Emoto's work is about the programming of water, and a lot of what we're doing in the medicine Buddhas is about programming water with specific intent to go in there, like smart medicine, and do specific tasks in the body.
Of
To,
course.
I mean, yes, I mean, bottle three, which is now ABC, is, I mean, one of the things we wanted to program the body with was that royal jelly, that sense of like, yes, I am the king or the queen bee, and this is my realm, and everything is good. And yeah, I'll go out there and do good by the world, and as I see fit, and nothing is really a problem because nothing is really a problem. So I mean, instilling really positive frequencies in the body is the next stage of, I mean, post karma burn. It's like, okay, let's clear it out. Now let's put in the most positive frequencies we can think of. I mean, obviously, if you're doing individual stuff, they talk about the medicine Buddha mantra, and you brought this to my attention where, you chant it 108 times into the water, and then you drink the water, and that's supposed to cure all disease.
Mm.
Now, what we did with the common bird and the medicine Buddha glyph is we did just that. We just did it for everyone. But it's not obviously not as specific as you doing it yourself, because then you're doing 108 renditions of that and you're drinking the water. So, I mean, it's a full on practice in and of itself.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I think it's really important that people know their own technologies and use the products to, to remind themselves of their own ability to create their reality. You know what I mean? How do
Yeah,
you create
yeah, yeah.
reality? Well, the words that you speak create shapes, create forms,
Mm,
bring in a
mm,
morphogenic field around you,
mm,
etc. So, in a way, for me, the product is like it's a morphogenic field, and it's got
mm,
all these influences, and it's got this nature, it's got your nature, it's
mm,
got the three of you,
mm,
putting your nature in, but
mm,
it's also got um, the ghosts and the whispers and the voice and the spirit of the places and the things, obviously.
mm,
So
mm,
in a way,
mm,
you are
mm,
working with the nature of all those places and all those things that you
mm,
put in.
mm,
And I was just going to say something about India. I was going to say, oh, what's interesting about the Ganges and Varanasi, what came to mind was the agoras. Have you seen the
mm,
agoras
mm.
that sit
I have. I know their story.
next to the
Yes,
fire?
yes. Yeah, well, they have all sorts of practices, but yeah, it's all non-attachment stuff and breaking down. It's one taste practice. Like,
Yeah,
but I mean, that's the purpose of it.
it's interesting because of the fire metaphor, and obviously karma burns as the fire
Mm,
created with it,
mm,
plus the alchemy and
mm,
with the agoras. I mean, I remember reading Robert Svoboda's book on the left hand of God. It's a
mm,
brilliant book if you've never read it, and he speaks
mm,
about this agorai sect, which means fire,
mm,
and
mm,
they worship the goddess, and their idea is
mm,
that they meet the goddess on the in the funeral pyres, where people
mm, mm,
bring the dead
mm,
bodies, and they
mm,
will build the pyre to
mm,
burn the body, and they'll wait
mm,
to meet the goddess and they'll stand
mm,
over the body as the fire burns,
mm, mm,
to see
mm,
if they
mm,
can be in a state of mind enough to meet this, either whoever's coming down, Tara or whoever.
mm, mm,
Um,
mm,
and they sometimes they use alcohol or drugs or various different things to give them the courage,
mm,
let the veils be down,
mm,
to give them courage for a direct meeting with the goddess, which they say
mm,
is terrifying if you if you're in your human tiny little personality
mm,
self or whatever.
mm, mm,
Um, so I mean, I'm just like playing with metaphors at the moment in terms of the burn aspect and meeting
mm,
our spirit in a clear way and all those kinds of things,
mm,
and how to
mm,
burn away what's in the
mm.
way of that. I don't know. It's just
Yeah, no, I mean, this is really the whole path to enlightenment. I mean, one can take the long view, the short view. It really depends on how you're viewing it. But what does come up in all paths, whether one's taking the gradual paths or the more direct paths, the Tantra or Dzogchen, I mean, is that you do have to deal with the weight of memory and accumulated action. That's why they say if one is to pursue enlightenment, it's best to go to a place far away from where you are used to being, so that as you go a bit crazy, you're not forced to repattern yourself by having to say hello to your mother in the morning or whatever, or speaking to your lover, that'll automatically put you back into a specific form. Now, a lot of this is about breaking forms in order to have the full gamut of forms, the thousand forms or the million forms, and you realize that you are all of these things. But the more you're locked in one particular thing, the more stuck in place you become. So I think this is very very useful to do. There's one thing I wanted to say about the whole morphic, the resonance field that maybe is slightly misunderstood generally. That If someone says, for example, I hate myself, that's one instance that might create the tiniest ripple. But if they're saying, I hate myself 10,000 times, it's going to have a much stronger effect because then it becomes like a solid thing. That's why, for example, the medicine word Buddha mantra is done 108 times, not just once. So it builds it. So you're sitting in the field of it for 10 or 15 minutes while it takes you a full round of a mala of the medicine Buddha mantra. And a lot of the whole thing around magic that people misunderstood or why it doesn't work for a lot of people is they imagine something for like all of 10 seconds. They think it's going to come true. But if you're actually spending an hour or whatever a day focusing intensively on something, and it's going to have a major charge. It's just actually getting people to do that and people having the time. Now, in a sense, a lot of giving people the medicine Buddha mantra in a prepackaged form in Karma Burn already is kind of cheating a little bit, but it's also like a clever shortcut so they can get that frequency and immerse themselves in it. A lot of what's come up with homeopathic remedies generally, but then the omnitech that I've kind of discovered is that it's more of a we can sit in it, it can permeate our cells, like we can literally bathe in it, it can seep through us. So the idea is not to just have the little drop of the pebble that drops in the water creates one ripple, but we want a big force into the water that moves the entire force of the water, because that water is us. We need our fields to be thick with the frequencies, and this is what we're trying to do with a lot of the tech, is to actually make it strong enough so everyone feels it. I mean, there's substances like the Navarotna, which is so strong that it'll work regardless. But to make some of the homeopathic remedies stronger, so we don't need to keep taking them so many times. We can have them a few times, and actually it almost becomes us because our whole body has learnt this frequency, teaching our body new frequencies. For example, with the royal jelly. I feel now that like I've taught myself the royal jelly frequency. I know it now. It's a part of me. Occasionally, I might need to be reminded a little bit, just to taste it. Like, oh yes, that's where I was starting to stress or worry about stuff that I shouldn't have been worrying about. But once it's known by the body, like we learn how to ride a bike or shoot a gun or climb or type, or it becomes a learned skill that's in the body. And if we can teach the resonant field that is us, because we're whatever 90% water, then it becomes second nature. We don't even have to think about it. Then we can automatically move into this all victorious space of like, okay, my world, I'm going to go out and do what I want. This is where the work's really going, and it's very exciting because I've seen now that we can actually do this. This is one of the things I've discovered, that you can actually program someone. I mean, I'm not programmed, but I mean, you can actually tell their body's memory a message on an energetic level strongly enough so that it becomes an imprint, a solid imprint that is not going to be forgotten. It's not just the skim of water, the stone drops, a little ripple occurs and then goes away. No, the ripple is like felt and it gets remembered by the whole body of water because it shook the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if there's a small wind that blows a leaf through your window, you're not going to remember it. But if there's a typhoon that rips the tiles off the top of your house, you're going to remember it. That's going to be engraved in your memory. This is kind of what we're looking at doing homeopathically, alchemically, the fusion of the two with the resonance field in the body. So it's really very exciting times. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's very beautiful. I mean, I'm also
yeah.
so excited and so thrilled, and I think that it complements so much of just working with other people who have the mindset to
Mm,
understand and kind of create a language together that we can all
mm,
play a part in
mm,
and all
mm,
facilitate for each other. And I think the language
mm,
of frequency and
mm.
understanding the impact of our own intent and all those kinds of things, working with clearing the body. I mean, there's just so many things in that. And there was something else that you said earlier around the moving into an unknown space or a new space, in order to not reinforce the past. And I think that that's why, for me anyway, I know that this is not necessarily your take on things. I think, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, it's like really good that people know consciously that they have to actually sometimes do something to make that
mm,
change.
mm,
I mean,
mm,
maybe,
mm,
homeopathically it will work through the system anyway, because the frequencies are already talking to the body, which is talking to the subconscious
mm,
mind.
mm.
But I think that
Let
it's
me just say something here because I think we work. I'm very big on left hand, right hand path stuff, and like for example, the homeopathy represents more a left hand path approach of like consuming the substances and going into it. But the right hand path, which is as important and required along with the left, is the teachings. Now that would be like a lot of the work you're doing is you're actually giving people the skills to actually deal with it. Now, a lot of what I see, the most effective paths have both left and right hand path teachings. You know, like for example, the normal right hand path would be like the lesser path in Buddhism. It's just like just teachings, just practices, no medicines, right? For example, whereas you see too much of the left hand path when people who just go out and they just take every substance they can find under the sun, but they don't have the teachings to balance it out, so they have no structure in which to process the visions they have, and they often just lose the plot, and then they miss the whole point of it. So it really is a fusion of left and right hand, and both are equally important. And I think the paths that really work well represent the ones which have this fusion. So it's like I said, the use of common burn in conjunction with a whole lot of techniques, some of which you're doing and some of which are done by a whole range of different people, is endless. I mean, it really just it's like a help me help you. It's we're working together on this massive memory that everyone has, and the work is huge. It's a massive work. I mean, the work of liberating all sentient beings is a work of many lifetimes, but we start right here, right now, because we can. And the more traction we get, the faster the machine rolls, the more we can actually move through stuff. All good.
Yeah, and I think what's also happening at the moment is like being 2014 and kind of moving into this new Earth frequency idea, is that I think that there are new energies reaching us now, and that it's more and more accessible for people to be able to remap, and download new stuff and bring
Mm,
in kind of
mm,
something that's a frequency jump or paradigm shift away.
mm,
So I mean, it's
mm,
more and more and more. I think people just are ready for clearing out their pasts
mm,
massively, because
mm,
there's a whole
mm.
body of past that's moving away from us.
Sure,
First,
sure, sure.
our own pasts, our own memories, etc. Um,
Mm,
yeah, so anyway, just that encouragement of what you were saying around the balance of the left and right paths, but also for
mm,
me, it's very important that people know about this idea of moving into the unknown, like new
mm,
experiences, and
mm,
keeping
mm,
keeping unfolding into something that's new. If you can take that
mm,
leap, and if karma burns can offer that opportunity where you just you're okay. It's like you say in your book, you're in the void now, so, or you're enlightened now, so what do you want to do? Well, whatever you want to do. It's
yes.
anything you want.
Yes, yes, yeah.
That's really beautiful, and I think
Mm,
to keep that frequency alive of go after your highest excitement, like what is
mm,
next once the karma's
mm,
burnt off.
mm,
And I'm sure there'll be a
mm,
natural and
mm.
innate process, like that comes out of the
Sure,
spirit, just as
sure,
it
sure.
would out of
Mm.
cleaning up stuff.
Yes, well, I think it just allows you to actually contact that innate knowing, that will, that intention, that intuition, whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of that is blocked for a lot of people. They're not able to receive messages from wherever it is they receive, whether it's, you want to call it the higher self or the divine or the universe, or just their own innate knowing, just their own connection with every living molecule on the planet, whether it's that. But it's hard to do that when the cup is stuffed full of memories, like so many memories. You actually, it's stuffed full. There's no space for that. In Buddhism they talk about the Sambhogakaya, which is the place from which everything comes. But it represents pregnant with full possibilities, all possibilities at once, and it says bubbling with possibilities. And it's like that is the space we want to be coming from at any moment. We don't want to have our possibilities limited by like, well, this is what we've done before, or because there's so much stuff filled in there, there's no space to put new possibilities. We want to clear that whole space out so that new possibilities can bubble up and then burst and then something new comes. And I mean, for me, the possibility of to be endlessly entertained by reality, or be in that state of enchantment at all times, this surely is the ideal, because then you can never be bored, then you're never afraid, then you're never sad, you're just entranced by the beauty of everything. And then whatever you're doing, you'll be benefiting people because you'll just be so inherently happy. And just by talking to people, you'll be benefiting them. So it fulfills all the Buddhist criteria there.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a couple of things to say, but I watched a wonderful TEDx YouTube clip the other day of a speaker. It was a teenager, and he's an absolute genius, this young guy. He's like 11, and he's already sort of passed his PhD and written papers, and, he's like
Okay.
amazing. And he was born autistic and just following shadows, and people would say, to him, that he'll never speak and he'll never write and he'll never do anything. And now
Sure.
he's speaking TEDx in front of 500 or 1,000 people and all around the
Wow.
world. And his thing is, it's a big break if people can stop going to school and stop learning what's being taught in
Mm,
terms of,
mm,
old content or what another
mm,
person
mm,
knows, and
mm,
actually start thinking.
mm,
Stop
mm,
learning, start
mm,
thinking, and then it moves,
mm.
you into a creative space. And it's
Sure,
just
sure,
like that
sure.
gap, that permission
Mm,
slip or whatever, where
mm,
there's just a gap for what it is
mm.
that your own self wants to
Yes,
create.
yes,
So just
sure.
just I wanted to just add something in that, because then it's like a little bit for me of maybe a recommendation from you around whether the process should be designed in a more passive way, so that the remedy can do its work, and the person's own spirit can do their work. So in other words, more passive approach to the work, or um, I don't want to like put too much content in, if
I think
that's
you'll
not
figure it
possible.
out as you go along. I mean, you feel into it and see what seems appropriate. I think it is, obviously, if you call up a specific thing for people to work with, like, okay, well, go back, revisit your past, or like I said with you, I mean, just maybe go to some of the places from childhood, just to move the process along. Whether one does this consciously or physically doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's obviously easier if you do it physically, because then you just got to be in that environment. But I mean, the course we're doing is going to be quite content light, because we don't feel the need to overload people with stuff, because already so much is going to be coming out. But I mean, if you're looking at doing some reinstallation stuff, maybe the focus should be on that more than like, okay, getting rid of the stuff, because the karma burn will work a lot with that. But saying that, the more you focus on a particular thing, the more it'll allow whatever memory is related to that to flush up and pass out. So I'm not sure really. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, there's
Maybe
arguments
every
both
group will
ways.
have its own energy and its own purpose
I
and
think so.
will
I think
in its
so.
own
Yeah.
way.
It needs. I would tend to go less is more. I mean, some, but not don't overload people, because they're going to be going through their own stuff anyway. So if they've got to, if you give them too much stuff. I mean, what we're doing in our, free course is just some of the skills to work with it. So I mean, as memories coming up, just some certain things that will actually help in the process of, like meditation type techniques. I mean, your stuff's more specific. The family constellation. I mean, it's perfectly designed for the karma burn anyway. But how much of that you actually bring into with the karma burn? And like I said, as you're taking it now, you're seeing like, okay, well, what do you need at this time in terms of support? I would use that as a good indicator of what people will be going through. But saying that everyone has a very different experience of karma burn depending on their karmic load and where they are in their life and how much work they've been doing or how stressed they are. I mean, what they can process. I mean, if you can't process stuff in your daily life, it'll obviously get processed in dreams. And I found it quite gentle, the processing in the dreams of karma burn. But then I've spent a lot of time processing karma quite directly, so I wouldn't expect it to be that hectic for me. But I mean, some people who haven't done that much of it, they find it quite strong. But like I said, we're not selling Smarties or Twinkies here. It's like
No,
this is yeah, this is there is karma to be dealt with, and it's this
you need
idea
a
that there's
place to
something
cry
bad
your
about
eyes
karma.
out for karma
No, no, I
burn.
hear you, but this is where you provide the space. Yeah, you bring the tissues. Yeah, that's the capsule. Yeah,
Yeah, cry on my
that's really the
shoulder.
shoulder to cry. That's it. That's what we need. Yeah. So maybe that's where you can
Like,
focus it
yes,
on.
it was very hard. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
No.
mean just nice, warm, supportive spaces. I mean, this is
It's
your
true. It's kind
department
of
more specifically.
encouragement to the body. I feel like it's encouragement to the body. It's like okay to let this out. It's okay,
Yes, yes,
to
yes.
open. It might be a lot or whatever, but it's okay. That kind of loving. It's like that lac maternus or
Mm,
whatever it's called, the mother's
mm,
milk.
mm. Yeah,
I'll be the mother.
yeah. There we go. It's interesting because one of the hormones in lac maternum, oxytocin, is actually what it does for the male is it makes the male child feel secure in themselves. And what it does for the female child is it makes them feel secure in their environment. So it has slightly different functions for male and female children, but obviously it's nine different mothers feeding a mix of male and female children. So it's just a really interesting thing that that's what's kind of required, yeah, by the men need to feel safe in themselves. The women need to feel that their environment's safe so that they themselves are protected, that they're in a safe place physically, right? Whereas the men need to feel secure in themselves is like, okay, I'm not feeling neurotic about myself. This is what the oxytocin gives to them. It's
Mm,
just interesting. I mean, it's not the only thing in there, the other hormones, but that is one of the strongest acting ones in the mother's milk. And it's a lot of people, when I give lacmaternum, the mother's milk, as a remedy, I give it to people who have a lot of addictive behaviors, whether it's TV or cigarettes or sugar or sex or it doesn't matter what the addiction is, but they're almost looking for that thing to fill the gap inside them because they don't feel warm and safe and nourished in themselves. But this is what the mother's milk brings. It brings that sense of like, yes, I'm satisfied. I don't need to eat another Mars bar, or I don't need to chase after another woman, or I don't need to like watch more Goli to get my fix, or whatever everyone's fix is. It's they feel content in themselves. This is what the mother's milk brings. Now, it's just bringing people back to that memory of like, okay, well, you actually have everything you need. There's no need to be in this desperate like, oh, if I don't go to this new restaurant and try this new food, I'm not going to feel satisfied or I'm not keeping up with the Joneses. It gives you that sense of like, well, from this place of satisfaction, if I still choose to go out and try this new food at this new restaurant, fair enough, but I'm not being driven like a cow to the restaurant because everyone else is going and I don't want to feel lack. This is what it gives you. So it's a very important component in the mix, but one that I mean it was a no-brainer for us to put that in because it's such an important part of people feeling secure in the environment, in the world, and in themselves, and satisfied. Because I mean, 99% of advertising plays on people's sense of lack. Oh, you don't have this. Yeah, I remember seeing this one ad for a washing machine in India, and it was the logo was like owner's pride, neighbor's envy, and the picture of the woman with the washing machine and the neighbor peering over the fence at the washing machine, envying it. I mean, this is exactly what they're playing into, but they do it in Indian style, like perfect reflection. There it is. They're just up front, like, ooh, the envy of the neighbor's washing machine. That sense of like wanting something that you don't have, this is part of what Mother's Milk brings to the party. And it's from a state of contentment, we go out into the world and do whatever it is we want to do without this being driven like sheep to have the latest whatever it is. And we're not going to be happy until we have that. But once we get that, we need the next level of, oh, I've got the Samsung S4, now I need the S5 or the S6 or G4, G3, it's all this hungry ghost mentality of like more, consume, consume, never being satisfied, or oh, the guy's got a faster cell phone than me, or it's smaller, or it's longer, or it's bigger, or can do this or that. Whew, it's exhausting. So if we can create substances that actually give that sense of contentment and calm and peace, then yeah, we're going a long way to, if you want to look at like peace on earth or that sense of, yeah, a new world where people have what they want, so they're not always competing. Or if they want to compete, they compete out of the pleasure of it. Like, okay, who can run the fastest to the other end of the field? But they're doing it for the joy of it, rather than like, I'll feel lack if I don't get to the other end of the field faster than my friend. It's like, well, we'll do it for the joy of just seeing how fast we can run. And whoever wins, well, maybe I'm better at something else, or maybe you're better at something else. Yeah, it's moving beyond the neurotic ego state of the human race, which is
To
why a
compete.
lot of the stuff is what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
the compete, all of that stuff. There's nothing wrong with a bit of healthy competition. It often drives stuff, but it's so easy to go into like, oh, if I'm not as good as you at whatever it is, then I feel a sense of lack, and then I go into this slightly tormented state of like, oh, how am I going to get better at you, or how am I going to hurt someone to make myself better because I felt this because of that. It's this huge chain. But if we can break the chain at the source by instilling these really positive archetypal formats of like energetic lotuses, so people feel relaxed, calm, powerful, strong potentates in their own right going out into the world. Yeah, I mean, this brings up another question you're asking me, like how to, create like an enlightenment mix. The karma burn is very much about clearing the slate. And to some extent, we will reinstall a lot of our own, the right architecture. But for example, the ABC mirror, that's the next product we're looking at, is around the sense of this all victorious thing. That's why it's got the light of
The V
Jupiter and the
juice.
royal jelly. The V juice, exactly, it's the V. Yeah, we're
I
working on
love
the V.
calling it the V because I wanted to get the
I don't
V.
like it. Yeah, no, well, don't worry, you've got, you know the
It's the
dealer.
V from the medicine Buddhas.
True blood, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're looking at improving the V as well. Yeah, I'm going to put some diamond plasma, which I think will be the right container to hold it. Like burnt diamond in the same way that they burn the navaratna, but the diamond gets burnt like 10 or 15 times to create this diamond ash. So I think that'll be what's required for. It'll be a big enough container, because at the moment the frequency of the V is quite strong, so too much of it almost tweaks you out of it. But if we have a bigger container, it'll be able to hold it better. But it's still in development. But we're getting close. Yeah. I mean, I should have a working
I
prototype.
think that it's an important trajectory, and if I think about my own work, like the soul science thing at Adam's Calendar, part of the agenda was moving from this victim slave mentality to this God sort of, the Buddha field, the unity consciousness, that kind of thing. And that transition requires a lot of washing out of the past, a lot of awareness, a lot of doing your work, stopping the judgments, taking the roots out of the past, pulling the old roots out of the past behaviors, and really doing some reprogramming. And so, I would like be really interested to say, okay, once we've done the karma burns enough times, like if the groups that I manage to get together are in a trajectory of moving with the products, plus the books and all sorts of things, because I think it's really about being in community and creating community all around the world.
Yes, yes.
Community that's sharing this whole enlightenment process, then it's like, okay, well, after karma burns, maybe there's another one and maybe another stronger version or whatever, which is optional. But then, it's like, okay, well, what's next? And this other product is possibly going to be what's next. It would be exciting to look into those possibilities. I mean, everyone that I know is going for, into this enlightenment idea, and how do we clear up completely, and how do we, what is an enlightened mindset in life, and all of that.
You see, for me, like if you clear out enough stuff, a lot of that will become apparent. It's what ABC will be to some extent is a little bit of like the fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like this is what it feels like, kind of. And if you're in it long enough, then you know it. Then you don't have to pretend to be in it or take something to generate it, because your body's almost learned the right way to approach the world. and you're feeling it, you've cleared enough out. I mean, enlightenment for me was a very distinctive time, and it required a lot of stuff, but I also see that, there are definitely shortcuts. There's ways that you can, move through stuff with a combination of medicines, and then teachings, and finding the optimal combination so that people can move through the crocodile-infested water as quickly as possible. And I never stop in my developmental stuff. I'm always looking at faster, better ways to actually accelerate this process, given that it's quite a headache. I mean, and it requires a fair amount of time as well. It's not like everyone has the time to just take off and spend 6 months or a year to get to the state where they free themselves from a lot of this patterning. A lot of people still have to do this while still holding down a job. So to offer the world products which people can use to do this while they're still running some of their old movie, so that they can affect the transition and maybe move into something they want to be doing, which is more enjoyable than what they're doing at the moment, which is often what's holding people back anyway, but they can't see a way out of it. This is part of the Minister Buddha mission as well, just to move through that into a new space. So very exciting.
It is very exciting. All right. Well,
and it goes in all directions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's endless things to say, but maybe we should we can catch up and see if there's anything else. Keep these videos short enough for people to watch in one sitting.
Cool. No, good. Yes,
Yeah.
under half an hour.
And so thank you so much for the amazing product.
Cool, no, always
a
pleasure.
To see where it goes and, just unpack it and follow the journey and do what's next. And, people are going to be ordering your books and things like that. So it's very exciting.
No, that's great. No, it works all the way around.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sure the group will be seeing you at some point somehow, and you'll be kind of like maybe an oversoul for our program.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. On the first round. And obviously, if anyone needs you, how do they best get hold of you?
Well, they can phone me on 073-236-0561, or my landline's 021. Yes, 021-465-2404. Or if they want to email me, probably best to do it adamas@buddhabrats.com. ADAMAS@BUDDHABRATS.com, and then we can arrange a Skype session, or just friend me on Facebook, Adamas Incendia. And then we can go from there, and then we can work out whatever needs to be done. So that's probably the easiest way. And be sure to check out our Karma Burn website, karmaburn.org. Yeah, check it out just to see, and buddhabrats.com. Plug for everything. Yeah. Well, the Karma Burn. I'm going to include a lot of testimonials on there.
It's all part of it.
Yeah, it's all part of it. Yeah, it all plays in. So, but check it out, and all the testimonials. We always want more testimonials. So send us your testimonials about Calm Burn. Go to calmburn.org and you can probably get a hold of Simon. He'll take that information, and we'd be happy to have any input you have, because each person who takes Calm Burn just shows us how huge the potential is for the substance. I mean, I'm amazed. It takes a lot to amaze me, really. It's not that I'm jaded, but I've just seen a lot. So it's like when the substance keeps expanding, and I see new possibilities, and it's bringing old people back into your life to resolve karma, and you realize how huge. I mean, I put a lot of it down to the genius of Nagarjuna, who made this Navaratna, 2,000 years ago. Because he was an enlightened alchemist in himself, and he designed this around this. But I think what we've done now is we've taken that and we've included a lot of the stuff that wasn't around then or wasn't in that part of India. And we've made it better. We've made a product which is gentler.
So are there any contraindications, like people on X, Y, and Z medicine or anything like that shouldn't try it, or?
I think it's fine for anything. What my general finding is on people on psychiatric medicines, it slows down the process, so they might not experience it as quickly. would tend to, as psychiatric medicines tend to damp down on things, this is pushing it out. So there might be a bit of friction there. It might be experienced as discomfort, but then on another level, it might be exactly what's required to clear that stuff so that they no longer need the psychiatric medicines. But it's too early in the process to say that. But as to like taking asthma pumps or heart medication, it's all fine. In fact, it'll probably help. In fact, the person I gave it to recently said her asthma got a lot better on the karma burn. So, I mean, potentially it has the ability to move through a lot of that stuff as well, because a lot of disease is embedded karma. So,
No,
I
I
mean,
agree with
no,
you. I mean, I have felt that kind of, desire to take the product into people healing themselves physically. I mean, people with cancer,
mm,
whatever it is that
mm,
might be
mm,
deep, deep, either
mm, mm,
unfinished business or unconscious materials or
mm,
whatever it might be.
mm,
That
mm.
I mean, sometimes people who have cancer just don't want to be here anymore, and there's nothing you can do about that,
Or
or
they're too
whatever.
attached to
But
the
I mean, if
disease,
if
yeah.
if people do want to work through levels of
Mm,
illness, this is a great,
mm.
product because
It'll meet you more than halfway.
yeah, and also, with the link into the medicine Buddha prayer and all of that, it's got this whole
Mm,
morphogenic field of intention of wellness
mm.
behind it, and that's
As
just
well, as well, yeah.
yeah. So
Mm.
thank you. Thanks for your genius.
No,
I'm
no, pleasure.
always
Always,
so happy to have it in my life, in my
always good to chat to
reflections.
you, Amanda.
So
Well, I'll see
we'll
you when you
find
come
you
to Cape
again.
Town. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a
Okay.
lot, eh? Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Cheers.